Hey everybody, this is Al with El Rey Collection. Hope everybody's doing well on this Euro weekend, Father's Day in middle of June in 2024. And I'm here since it's basically middle of June, middle of the year. I'm here to talk to you about the review of my predictions for 2024. It's halfway through the year. Let's take a quick look at where we are, talk a little bit about state of the hobby, some of the things going on, things that I got right, things that I didn't get right, and we'll just take it from there. Of course, there's always in these types of things, there's always a disclaimer. So pause your video here, get out your magnifying glass, and read this very long disclaimer. Basically, anything I say is not to be construed as investment advice. I could use a lot of words about the future. Of course, no one has a crystal ball. No one knows what's going to happen in the future, and neither myself or the company that I represent has anything to do with trying to get you to invest money in anything. This is really meant to be fun. If you want to see all the details of the disclaimer again, please print this out or stop the video and read it in detail. But this is really kind of meant to be fun and certainly not investment advice. So, of course, I'd love to hear your thoughts. So please leave your comments. And I'll try to out pretty every thing that I have. How I'm exposed to these markets through my collection, but I can't out every bias that I have. As you guys all know, I own most of the cards, or many of the cards that we'll talk about. I own a lot of soccer cards, so and then all the scans in the presentation are my cards. So if you have any question about that, well, with some exception of the new rookies, so those aren't my cards. But if I had a crystal ball, of course, I'd be fully retired. But I also just wanted to pause and just think about this. I'm not sure if you can read the numbers on the screen, but something that I just thought would be a fun to check up on. As most people know, Messi is probably the biggest star we have in soccer card collecting. And while he's at the end of his career, he still is pretty popular, and his cards are being graded every day. But in perspective, all the cards that PSA have graded in all time, Messi has 109,000 and change, and Victor Wembanyama, after his first NBA season, which obviously was a very good one, already has about 170,000 cards. These are now, I guess, most of those 170,000 cards are rookie cards for him. Because he just finished his first year, which is absolutely mind-boggling. And Messi has 109,000. So look, at this makes you feel great about soccer card collecting. We don't need a tremendous amount of influx of demand to make these 109,000 Messi cards, which many of which are very valuable. Get a lot more attention. Anyway, just thought that was a fun comparison. I know it's apples to oranges in a certain extent, but from a relative perspective, it gives you some idea of how early soccer card collecting is in general. All right. So at the beginning of the year, I said, hey, a new pre-war soccer card would sell for $10,000. I remember 2023 didn't see a single new card hit that, but we had a very robust 2022. Here it's all about what comes to market and when it comes to market. And you can see here, of course, we had the really very cool Wharton Shield, Arthur Wharton, recognized as many, probably most, as the first African descent player in the English top division. It sold for $43,000 in January, so that really kind of hit the buzzer really quickly. And then we had a Bloomer Baines Shield also ringing the bell at 10K with the juice in US dollar terms. So that already happened, and I think we're gonna see some more throughout the year. There's some at auction, one of which I'll talk about here in a bit. So that's kind of that was a pretty easy one to pass after 2023 not really ringing this bell that much. Then kind of moving on, my second prediction was that the Messi market would hit bottom I believe that the 2024 would kind of be the bottom of the Messi market, and it's hard to because the Messi market, you've got the Campio and Campione rookies, you got 71 bis, you have non-rookie cards, you have Chrome, you've got Prism. So the Messi market is a series of sub markets in it. And I always hate to call a bottom in a market, but I always believe that at these kind of entry rates, collectors that are in for the long haul will find the relative 2024 entry points as key, as a good entry point over time. And I feel like in retrospect, we probably hit bottom in very, very late 2023 or early 2024. It doesn't take, a lot to kind of get to that conclusion when you start to see some of the results that we had in 2024. This, I don't know if you can see oh yeah, I think you can. This up here in the upper left was a Panini Instant 1 of 1 that got a PSA 9. It was the black 1 of 1 instant, and it sold for 126,000. I mean, obviously great shot here, but literally an instant, i.e. Topps Now card for 126,000. Bit of a mind blower to me. I mean, but epic moment. So, in some way I could kind of get it. Then you had this $327,000, I mean $322,000 Messi 71 bis that sold in January as well. I mean, that definitely was a super strong sale. And then here just a couple weeks ago, we had this treble green, which are the that are to 10, pulling in $15,000. I mean, this was like a $100 card pre-boom, and now it's 15,000. I mean, that's just crazy robust in my mind. And then you had the super refractor MLS Messi in his Miami uniform in with what I think is a sticker autographed, going for 40,000. So you can't talk about every Messi card. Certainly the elite cards, which I think all of these in this category would be, have done really, really well. And then CR7, kind of the gap between Messi and CR7 has actually widened, right? So certainly the 1 of 1s, the World Cup and MLX have done really well. The treble card obviously did pretty well. But I still feel when you start kind of go down to the lower grades, you kind of feel, or at least I'm feeling, that the market has really, really solidified here at the bottom and had some ticks up. And you'd need to go card by card ladder and see. I'm kind of trying to distill a bunch of data down into a general trend, and I think we've seen the bottom in the Messi market. Now, that doesn't mean that all Messi cards are great investments. In fact, I'd have significant concerns over like just the ones on this screen. Maybe all of these for different reasons, right? I definitely think the super refractor in a Miami jersey is really interesting and great for the US market right now. But when we look back on his career, whether it's 10, 15, 20 years ago, in the end, you're still talking about a 19th year card in a second tier league. Yes, it happens to be America, but how many Miami United fans are we going to have that are just going to be so into him having to be in that jersey? And I think if we forecast out in the future, and there's going to be 1-on-1s next year and the year after that, I just don't think that has a great demand profile to stick. I mean, I can be wrong, right? In a similar way, there's been a lot of narrative about the treble being like the PMGs of soccer. Not so sure. I mean, I know there certainly is a niche market there for that, but I think there's also been some market manipulation in that segment. So I probably wouldn't be a buyer here of that card as well. I think the 71 bis, call it pop control, call it whatever, um, is definitely something that's out there as the elite card, and not just of Messi, but in the hobby. So I think there is a narrative there where you can say, well, this is something that has like the fundamentals to, if anything does well in the soccer market over time, this would. Um, this is still selling above where things were, kind of in the boom, and there's some reasons for that, right? I mean, he wins the 22 World Cup, he comes over to America, so that one I think has the best fundamentals. And then instant cards, while cool, it just seems like a gigantic price. So for that, now if you take this a step down to some of the other rookies and even the lower mid grade rookies, I think there's really some great opportunities there when you start analyzing the multipliers for specific cards. So long story short, I actually think we've seen the bottom of the Messi market in general. And that some of these cards up here are a little frothy from my perspective, but there's lots of great opportunity and entry point for a lot of different cards across the Messi market. So I also said that I thought PSA would resume grading the Messi the rookie Este sticker, which they call as Panini stickers because Panini bought Este as this was going on. And there was about 150. Just keep in mind, there's 150 Este stickers, and there's nearly 771 bisses. So this is order of magnitude much, much more difficult to get than the 71 bis. In part because PSA stopped grading them for a period of time. So I sent them scans of my copies, and I expected them to start grading this at some point after they felt comfortable with the examples they have. And by the way, not to get in the nitty gritty here, there are different real stickers, Este stickers, because it looks like they were printed at multiple factories that had slightly different printing. So the actual, when you get in the magnification of the pixels, you can see a couple different ones that are in fact legit. But so that's why this becomes a little bit more complicated, this particular sticker. And the good news is, as Matt Hendler posted on May 13th, which is like about a month ago, PSA is going to resume grading the Messi sticker. So that actually happened. So what happens to the pop? We don't know, right? So here we have in total, I think roughly 167, at least I have here on this particular slide. And so I'm gonna really watch the effect of this in the second half of 2024. There's a lot of reasons to think that it won't be suddenly floodgated and there'll be 700 of these. Again, it sits at roughly 168. Actually, I just updated this before I did it, and the 71 bis at 407 at 742. So there's still that 4x is working. We'll track that over time and decide. But it's good news that the PSA in my mind is grading the sticker, because it is one of the more important stickers in the hobby. And the hobby's been burned by fake stickers, and to the overall detriment of the entire soccer card collecting. So it's nice to see PSA stepping up with the authority, and their great guarantee is, of course, a really, really big, thing. And this is why on most stickers, I'd pretty much only buy them in PSA holders right now. Okay, moving on. I said that there was not going to be a $250,000 soccer card sale this year, and you remember back in the in 2022 we had the amazing $1.3 million sale of the Pele Alifa PSA 9, and the top 2022 sale was 260K of that was another Messi PSA 1071 bis. And so 2024 definitely has seen some strength at the high end of the market. but the Messi card clearly cleared this threshold with a sale of 322 that I talked about before. And so obviously, the 71 bis and 10 and PSA 10 has performed really, really well on high grade. There hasn't been a 10 graded in years. So I was a little shocked. It improved by roughly 30% over the previous sale, and then we got these people saying, hey, they're hunting this guy, which ultimately I think was what ended up being a bit of a scammer or dubious guy, looking to pay $275,000 for all 19 of the PSA 10s. And they were also paying finder's fees. Looks like this kind of broke down, but that's kind of the thing going around specifically about Messi PSA 10s. It's a market you could corner. If you had $3, $4, $5 million, you could probably track most of these down and get them, and then you could control the market, which I wouldn't be shocked. I had heard that there was a group of people doing this kind of with the PSA 10 Jordan rookies. True, not true, I don't know, but certainly with and that has a few hundred copies. Here at 19, it seems like a target to be able to go over and try to do something similar. Looks like somebody started out to do it, but I don't think they had the funds, reputation to actually make it happen, and probably didn't make any inroads. Anyway, an interesting take. I was wrong on this. Didn't think we are going to see it. That's good for the soccer card market, I believe, to get a sale of 300,000. That's quite a lot of money. So, pretty exciting times for Messi PSA 10 holders, although there's clearly only 19 of those or less if people have multiples. All right, so moving on to my next prediction. Oh, by the way, just before that, if we hadn't have had that sale and all those Messi sales we looked at earlier, where would we have been? We'd still be wallowing largely under 100,000. Here are some notable things. I didn't think this 58 oversized kind of postcard, I didn't expect that to do nearly 20,000. That was a big sale. I think this PSA 7 Alifa is a pretty weak sale, all things considered, and this PSA 6 at 52. We also had this signed rookie card, which is really kind of fun, and it was a PSA 5 but with a gem signature, sold for 80,000. So those were some of the bigger sales that we've seen, but the reality is nothing's really cleared outside of some of these Messi elite cards, the 100,000 range. So I also said, hey, that the year of the collector was going to continue in 2024. Many of you know in 2023, I had mentioned that I expected it to be a great year to be a collector. It turned out to be an excellent year to be a collector. There was still some ratcheting down of things, but I didn't see any specific market catalyst to drive things significantly ahead. At the same time, the macro environment has done pretty well, whether you were in crypto or whether you're in stocks, those did well. So some of it kind of filtered down into the market. I figured it was going to be a rough time to be a flipper, which was absolutely the case, and expected to see pre-pandemic pricing on a number of issues. So it was a great time to go through your want list. And I think that in general, this was the case. This is the case. Super hard to quantify a market. But I would generally say that when you start to look at the low to mid grades of more common material, these are absolutely still attainable. Higher end cards or real true rarity cards, I'd say, have generally increased in the first half of 2024. So it really kind of depends where you're playing in the market. Still lots of great opportunity in the mid to low range where prices have remained stable, somewhat down, depending on, of course, what you look at. And then kind of on the pretty rare or really, higher grades, I think those things have done disproportionately well. And it wouldn't necessarily be, maybe the best point to jump in as a collector on some of those bounce backs. So So that's kind of, what my thought was. I tried to add a little bit of a data to look at this, and I know you probably can't, follow this exactly, but this is a card ladder index, and there's many, many, many problems with the card ladder indices, in my opinion. But specifically as it relates to soccer, they're even worse than kind of the regular ones. But in aggregate, it does create a broad-based view of a lot of stuff. Of course, the question is what stuff, this particular index is chock full of Messi and Ronaldo and Haaland and prospects, which I think you're generally going to expect prospects aren't going to do well unless it just happens to be a crazy class of people who are doing great. And, year over year, June to June would tell you that we were down, what, 18% year over year. But if you look at the last 6 months, we would be down, only 1.4%. And again, because this has a chock full of, prospects, I think you've got, João Felix in there. You got, probably Sterling in there. I think that there's just some dead weight. Of course, you got Haaland and Mbappe and, all these guys. And then, CR7 hasn't done particularly well. So, I think that there's an underlying story here of, okay, 20% year over year, 18, let's just round up, 20% year over year, decrease, including a bunch of baggage, and 1% flat over the last 6 months really tells to me is that if you're not a massive, Sterling or Felix collector, it's probably going to be more positive than that. So a general flatness to upness, again, that kind of goes to this certainly in the mid-level grades that I feel are relatively stable to slightly up, because some of the baggage is bringing on the soccer card market is just stuff more related to modern, ultra modern, and prospecting. So in general, I would say pretty I was pretty right on this particular prediction. The next prediction is I expected that the vintage soccer Discord would grow to about 1,000 member. We ended 2023 at 925, and right now we are at 966. So we need more or less the same rate of growth. So we had 41 come in, and we're still barely on track to make it. I'll give myself a green check mark. Hopefully the Euros and Copa America and something's going on in the soccer card market, are additive to the community. If you're not a member, please go to this right here, this website on your thing, and download Discord and get access to our server. And hey, while you're at it, if you're doing that, can you like this video and subscribe if you're not subscribed? Really appreciate it. Get notifications when I'm coming on to discuss the soccer card market. So I think that's a pretty positive thing. Didn't expect exponential growth. My next thing was I thought that CSG would gain ground on PSA with $10 to $12 pricing, and then the PSA would stand relatively strong around $15 a card for most of 2024. Really, I figured that they would need to compete probably on TCG cards where CSG, does have a relative foothold. And then, I thought that SGC would remain kind of niche focused with great turnaround times. And I had no idea what Beckett was going to do. Or not even a good guess, because it's just, I don't know. It's a bit of a crazy situation over there. In the end, I think that I was pretty right. I mean, PSA is still standing on their $13.99, mostly for TCG, but occasionally for some certain niches and sports cards, to $15.99 on their Collectors Club specials. And they're still grading 1 million cards a month. And that means that their standard costs of like $18.99, $24.99, or $39.99 are still generally sticking. So the fact then that PSA purchased SGC, is probably kind of a value play to make sure that, SGC didn't become a bad competitor to PSA and drive pricing down. So I think that's likely a defensive move from them. And then if they were going to have lower pricing to compete with CSG, they would use SGC to do that as opposed to the PSA brand. And they effectively, I think it's a good strategy. And I think that's what they're going to try to do. They're going to understand how low they can go, still get a million units a month. SGC just rolled out a $12 special. I think that's targeted at CSG. CSG just came back with sub $10 submissions. I just myself sent in more than 50 cards to CSG, and my cost for those were $8.90. So there's a pretty big disconnect here. And I think obviously CSG is going for market share. But PSA really, given how big they are, there's not a huge incentive for them. Even, $2 a month decrease in their average selling price of a card at 1 million cards is $2 million off their bottom line in a month. So there should be a tremendous amount of pressure at PSA to maintain their average selling price. And I think what they're going to still try to do while they continue to get submissions on their Collectors Club specials is maintain their pricing. And if they ever want to have discounting, they're mostly going to do that through the SGC segment or through the segments that CSG is gaining more ground to stem off the CSG gains, which is what they've shown to do with Pokemon cards or TCG. The TCG grading at like $13.99 right now has been kind of a constant since December or right around there, and their turnaround times are fast. So that shows me they're really trying to shore up their service in the to make sure that the CSG guys are feeling the pressure, and they're probably not making a tremendous amount grading cards for sub $10 at CSG. So interesting, kind of, at least that's my perspective. And I think that it's pretty right on the grading prices for now. We'll see what the back half of the year has. This is just a graph where I mapped out kind of how many cards have been graded. Look at this, and this is specifically for PSA. So you see just this upper to the right, regardless of kind of the crash that happens right around here in card grading. I mean, look at this. You could just draw nearly a perfect regression line right through this. Yeah, sure, certain months are low, certain months are high. They ironically, not ironically, it completely makes sense that there's some high months followed by low months. So there's probably just some shipping issues going on here. The most likely thing is part of this graph belongs here, part of this graph belongs here, part of this graph belongs. And that's why on a regression, I think you're going to look at this and look at this. I mean, we're literally at all-time high, 1.3 million cards graded in May. So just a tremendous continued growth in the grading hobby. And it really does beg the question if we're going to end up in a junk slab era thereafter with all this overhang of literally millions and millions of cards being graded. So interesting, thought, interesting to think about. If that does happen, of course, the value of grading will go down, and that will create a business challenge for some of these entities. Moving on into my next prediction, I said at least 2 new rookies would be found, and it's kind of a stretch to call this really cool El Tigre Arthur Frederick card, a Brazilian great that actually just launched on Golden this week. A rookie because it looks like there's a 1921 version, a couple different cards that are from 1921. Regardless, it's in the rookie constellation. It's the earliest graded card as of now. There's only one copy of this, so that's going to be super exciting to see. Personally, I'd love to own that card, so I'll be bidding on that. There's also a ratcheting down in other Brazilian card rookies. Here's a 1947 Bala Campbell, which is a DD rookie. He looks super, super young in that. And then here's this comes out of like a soccer table game thing. Here's a Revellino. I'm not sure I'd call it a card, but certainly it's an early item from Rivellino. So that one is kind of interesting. So I think we've been seeing in the Brazilian side kind of a ratcheting down, and even this Freed. I mean, obviously calling it a rookie is a little ridiculous. It's kind of akin to, Oscar Charleston. Some people call his 1923 cards, rookies. I mean, he was playing for many, many years ahead of that. It's just the first card, really. I kind of, look at it like that. So I wouldn't necessarily call those rookies. But it's pretty exciting to just find anything beyond before what we had Hudson. I think these are two new rookies. I think we can, or what we're colloquially call rookies or first cards. I mean, a 3 on this slide. I actually think that there's going to continue to be others. Just the nature of the hobby card, soccer card space within the hobby. And I think personally it's exciting. Yeah, sure. It sucks when you hold the one that was the rookie, but I think it's just great progress for the overall hobby. So looking forward to new things coming out, and this new DD is now on my want list. I'd probably pick this stuff up, even the Rivellino if it was available, but yeah, I don't feel nearly as strongly as things that aren't really kind intended to be kind of cards. So this one's been getting a lot of airtime over the last few weeks. And I had predicted that we would see a stabilized pop in pre-modern cards will kind of hit bottom. And I had said that a number of elite pre-modern stickers, would have stabilized populations, and that could provide a catalyst for a bounce in pricing. Because frankly, it was a terrible market for these cards in 2022 and 2023, and the pops have been slowing down and largely consolidated. I expected kind of moves to be up, and I showed 4 particular stickers. The kind of one of the all-time great stickers, the Zidane, and then I picked particularly the headshots because those had always seemed pretty rare on a relative basis to their companions. And I picked, to show the Lewa, KDB, and Iniesta rookies. And so, I kind of went about thinking this year could be a good time to pick up, some of these cards, and a few things happen. And this first part is about kind of the Iniesta find that happened by Leo Panini Vibes. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit about this. Actually, I was working on this even before kind of things kind of blew up in kind of the market. And I do think, and USMNT made a video about this to kind of created some conflict between Alec and Leo. And I do think that they're, on reflecting on this, I do think this sub segment is all card collecting has some level of being a minefield, right? Look at the holders, the Black Swamp find in baseball. If you were the holders of the elite cards, which was a PSA 6, and now suddenly there's a bunch of 9s, 8s, and 10s of that card, you're going to get crushed. But I really feel like this huge boom in the gem mint population of the Iniesta just made people wake up to the possibility that there could be fines of 5, 10, 20, 50, 100 plus cards, which was never really, that was always out there, but we'd never really seen a huge influx of mega high grade gem stickers make it, mostly because stickers are hard to gem. It's really hard. You get them out of a pack, you're likely to get a 6, 7, or an 8. I think you're happy if you get a 9 out of a pack, right? And then rarely you get a 10, even out of today's packs. They're all kind of off center. It's hard to open these packs. When you open the packs, half the time you're going to bend all the stickers in the pack, or at least one or two, because of the way that Panini packages them. So I think the prospect of a huge influx of gems was, and remember, most stickers end up getting stuck. So, it was just really kind of not as much on the radar screen for me as it was. And this Iniesta influx, kind of wakes you up and say, oof, what happens if a bunch of Zidanes, if this happens to the Zidanes or Iniestas? So it hasn't really happened in the headshots or the Zidanes, but it has roughly happened in the inaction ones, bizarrely kind of across the board. So this particular one, it's just kind of like a crazy one, right? In 2022, this particular sticker, the inaction one, the 392, sold for nearly $5,000. This is kind of the height of the market. And then it had been drifting down to hitting kind of the bottom in July of last year, and it hit 840. And that's when it was still a relatively stable pop of like 5. Then the pop, surges, to 2710s right now. And it goes for the next auction goes for 3,800. And then I think when people kind of realize that the pop had jumped, the next one then goes for 1,500. So, and when you look at this, you can say, wow, look at this. The total pop on the headshot right now is 37. The total pop on the inaction is still only 108, which I'd say is a pretty low pop, right? And when you look at it here from a percentage perspective, the PSA 10 on the headshot is 2 out of, let's call it 40. So it's like 5%. The PSA 10 on the inaction shots is 27% more or less, or 25%, if you want to look at that. And then the 9s here, there's another 26. So 50% of the population in this sticker right now, or more than 50%, is 9s and 10s. And here it's closer to 30% or less in the headshots. I think you can see this a little bit better on these two graphs that I have here. You can see this relatively. This is the 392 a couple years ago. By the way, this is I realize I just cut off the dates here. This is 2021 to 2023, and you can see it was at 30, and it's gone up to 108 over what largely encompasses the boom. Not really super problematic from my perspective. I think that's kind of, hey, it's a 3x of what it was. It's just this, you can see this massive gem rate. And again, kudos and congrats to Leo to have the eagle eye here to take the gem rate that was, hovering around 1 in 20 up to, 1 in 4. So massive find for him to find such great condition stickers. Obviously, congrats to him. But, for the hobby, the fact that can happen is a little bit scary. And while you love this graph over here where you can, oops, I guess I didn't have my pointer here, where you basically get 0%, also similarly here, it's not quite the same growth from 15 to 37. It's more like a 2.5x, little less growth. And you end up with 2 out of the 37. Again, not a great sample size. And remember, there's like 9 or 11 9s here. But I'd say that if we had a similar jump of what do you want to call it, 10, 15 gems pop here, that would destroy the value of the headshot. And that's kind of why like, even though I figured this year was going to be a great year to get back into kind of pre-modern stickers, there's still risk here, right? If this one has a similar pop, then I think that we're gonna, basically struggle to maintain prices, right? So that's that is kind of what I saw in this particular sticker. I also wanted to look at the KDB one, and here we've got you could see over here the inaction. Similarly, sorry, I cut off these dates again. 41 to 128, again, more or less a 3x. And the headshot, crazy. I didn't realize how low this is. There's only 17 headshots. So this is crazy. If you listen to Foddy, he talks about how, where this was and how it was, distributed, and how, these, when you start to look at the amounts, how many survived, how many got stuck. He had some great math on the Discord on this. But I mean, basically, you're looking at a 6x in the inaction over the headshot. So, but again, there's nothing to say that 10 or 15 of these couldn't be found. And if these were found in gem, you would suddenly have a situation where the gem percentage would be absolutely high, and it would destroy the value of these. Because in general, the fact that there's 17 of these and 10 of them are 9s and 10s is already a pretty high grade mark, higher than you traditionally expect to see in stickers. So for what that's worth, that's the KDB analysis. And I was actually doing all this analysis before kind of the issues of the last couple of weeks, and concerns kind of came up, because I was just interested to see how things were going. Here with the Zidane, here I did finally not cut off the dates. In 2021, you see there's about 70. Now there's it's increased by 50, so less than a 2x. And part of this is probably because this was always one of the really, really sought after cards. But of course, if this went from, there's 0 gems right now, out of the 119, there's 6 9s. So if 20 gems popped, obviously it would destroy the value of these 9s right now as well. That said, I think that that this is probably one of the lesser likely ones. Maybe this and a Van Basten, some of these earlier ones from the 80s that people have been looking for a number of years. So hopefully, for my sake, because I happen to own a 9, this a big find doesn't happen here, so that this Zidane continues to have 9 as the top grade. I'll look at Lewa here in the face of unfortunately he didn't play for Poland, so they weren't able to snatch the draw in the Euros today. But what you see here is we had this huge growth at the beginning of 2021. You may remember this was very concerning to a lot of people in the space, when there's like 35, and it just quadrupled over time. And when you look at this and then you say, okay, well, there's 194 now. In retrospect, like when you compare it to other countries, it doesn't seem a tremendous amount, because clearly things have stabilized since then. But there was a time in the hobby when we were all talking about, wow, was this an influx of fakes? Was it a find? The gem rate at 13 doesn't seem, terrible. There's 26 10s. There's 67 9s. So, again, roughly half of the pop are 9s and 10s. But when you compare it again over here to this one, it's not quite as dramatic as the KDB, but there's only 71. There's 71 headshots, and again, roughly half of them, slightly more than half, are 9s and 10s. A little bit more weighted to the 9s in here. And again, not many of these were graded, so you could say, wow, 7x, 7x. These are both good, and the headshot is like roughly half. So when I was thinking about this prediction at the beginning of the year, I was kind of looking at this, early 2022 to 2023, saying this growth profile and this quadrant here is not terrible. I would actually, still believe this is stabilized. The problem, if you want to call it a problem, is it is still susceptible to these types of shocks, like this Lewa shock, when it went from 30 to 50, the 11 to 30, and these just big. Now, these were individual submissions, not just one. Like here, you can see this is one submission. From one day to another, this pop went from 69 to 125. So, like, who had 50 of those things sitting around? And most of them, actually ended up grading 8s, 9s, and 10s. So, not dissimilar to our Iniesta case, right? And the answer is it could be a lot of people. So, I'm finding the space where I originally was thinking that this could be an investable space. Let me go back a little bit to the original thing here. I was originally thinking, hey, these pre-modern cards are going to hit bottom because the pops are going to stabilize. It looks like that on a few cards, 3 of them actually all 4 of these, I'd say it looks like it. But the fact that kind of the Iniesta in action reminded me of kind of just the general dangers. I don't really find this space right now as super investable, because these types of things can happen, which we saw happen on the Lewa. Now these were exceedingly low, but it's more like this block that came in, and on the Iniesta side, where was that slide? This block, came in too right here, which is kind of Leo's block. So, I think another couple things. I'd only be buying these stickers in PSA slabs. I think I may have mentioned that. And I, am not. I don't see these cards as super investable right now. I'm taking more of a wait and see attitude, just because I don't know, and I think it's more likely now that some of these stickers have a massive bump in population just naturally because of fines than I do, a 1904 Cadles card. So I'm feeling like some of this more vintage stuff is a little bit more investable. Could there be fines? Sure. But at least seeing some of Leo's pictures and understanding the collector base in Italy and whatnot, I'm just more nervous about Panini stickers. Even these really cool elite ones, which are awesome to collect, by the way. And I do collect, and it doesn't mean I'm going to be running out to sell the ones that I have. It's just, I don't know if I'll be throwing a lot of new money into this segment right now. And I thought that I would when the year started. Okay. I actually thought the vault pricing was going to creep up in 2024 because I think it's still a really good value to people. But actually, we haven't seen that happen. But more than anything, it's because I think of the recent merger between PSA and eBay. Like, they want to make sure that things work first before they start raising prices. If they raise prices while things aren't working and the integration hasn't been done, it's going to be really hard for them to justify that, and they're going to lose the momentum they have. So, I think, and then PWCC doesn't want to lead by raising their prices to push people over to the PSA eBay, vault, which now PSA is going to manage. So I think that kind of bought us, could be 8 months, 12 months, 16 months, 18 months, whatever time to still kind of have this attractive pricing in the vault space. So, obviously all these companies are companies. They're going to be constantly looking way to extract more value from their customers. But if you're thinking about getting things sent back to you, the 1% at PWCC and the $1 per item in the PSA vault, it's probably attractive times to get this stuff sent back to you. Just my 2 cents for what it's worth. So I think I've been wrong there. And then I expected some slab corrections. I think I've heard of a few being made on certain dates. Kind of the big one that I pointed out was the Queagle. Haven't seen a new one kind of in the wild, so to speak, that has like a 1960 date or a 5960. But I still expect to see that out there. I have not seen that for now. But I think this is a good thing. And even though it hurts people, I own Queagles or other things. We've known about this for a long time. We've been talking in the community for years about the reason. Still an awesome sticker. Absolutely awesome. Does it deserve kind of the rookie like premium prices? No, but it's still actually one of my favorite stickers visually. So, hopefully that doesn't damage it. I know there'll be some other things that will change in time. In general, I don't think this is a bad thing. Getting more accurate information on slabs in the hobby is only helpful to everyone in the long run, even if certain times some of those changes are painful for individuals. All right, so I figured I'd find a couple of my top 10 most wanted lists. Last year I was able to track down, a few. Just want to remind you, it's always great to have Grail, dry powder sitting around when your Grails come up. Mine haven't really appeared kind of this year, but I'll be making a run. It's some recent auctions alluded to here and see if I could, make that happen and close the gap in the second half of 2024. So the year's far from over. I'm not giving myself a loss on this yet, but pretty excited about the future of my collecting in 2024. So kind of a review. Hey, you know what? We cleared the 10K mark on pre-war. That was relatively easy. I think the Messi market hit bottom early 2024 or late 2023. Kind of impossible to say, but that's my general feeling looking at a bunch of analysis. PSA is now grading the Messi rookie sticker. Este sticker. There was a 250. I'm happy to be wrong on this one. I didn't think we'd see the 250K soccer sale. We did. So happy to see that. I think the year of the collector kind of depends on what you're collecting. If you're kind of at the high end, I think there's been some appreciation in the segment, and I think if you're kind of in the mid lower end, I think there's still a lot of amazing opportunities there. Many things hitting pre-pandemic pricing, which I think is incredibly value oriented there. We're still on track to have 1,000 people in the Discord. CSG, I expected to gain some ground and on PSG with lower pricing. Now we're sub 10 on their recent grading promotions, and then PSA still holding the line at the $13.99 to $15.99 range for most of 2024. I'd expect to continue to see that given they're getting so many cards a month right now. We found already more than 2 new rookies, all Brazil focused, but let's try to find some other ones out there. So this one's going to hold true for the year. And then, I think it's kind of a mixed bag on the stabilized pop. On all 4 of the cards that I showed on my slide, that has been the case, but there's a new sense of nervousness that wasn't, I think, previously in the space, but probably should have been in fairness, thinking that, there's always, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of these stickers printed. So we should always expect more. I think I'm happy to be wrong on this one too. The vault pricing creeping up hasn't really materialized. So happy about that. And then, I think we'll continue to see slab corrections in the course of the year. I would expect the Queagle, even though I haven't seen that in the wild yet in 2024, I would expect to see that at some point here. And then, I got to get, working myself to, cross some items off of my top 10 want list. So I think a little bit more right than wrong so far, but it's a long way to go in, for the rest of the year. And I hope you've enjoyed kind of this review. And if you have, can you like the video, subscribe if you're not subscribed? And, I hope everybody has a great collecting, 2024. Let me know what you think about my predictions here in the comments below. Join the Discord if you are not a member, and learn from lots of other people who are as nerdy as me and you if you're watching this. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great day and hope you enjoyed this video. Bye-bye.